Great. And there'll probably be a few people joining us here shortly. Sorry for the delay, but we started pretty close to on time. There's usually lots that happens for us to do that. Oh, and I see someone said, yep, that's better. People joining me, thank you. I'm glad you could join me tonight. And again, for healing your aloneness, I use a lot of family systems approach to recovery, healing, codependency, and that I'm hopeful that some of that wisdom, which has also been given to me, I feel like I've been very benefited by a family systems approach to healing and recovery, that it will also be a benefit to you. Let me get my glasses on so I can read. I know a lot of people, I've worked with a lot of people over the years, probably maybe thousands by now, since it's been about 40 years or so. And a lot of times people will come, and if they feel a lot of pain or a lot of discomfort or a lot of uncomfortable feelings, that they will say, well, I just want to talk about positive things. I don't want to talk about my childhood. I don't want to talk about things in the past because I already feel in pain. I'm already uncomfortable. I don't want to go there, which that's their right. They don't have to go there if they don't want to. They can go use CBT or, cognitive behavioral therapy, or, there's other approaches you can take without going into the past. And, but I've always gone along with Carl Jung, who is one of those psychoanalysts around the Freud era, and he makes the statement: one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Hi, Soren. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. And actually, that's a good motto for family systems thinking, and systems thinking in general, because we want to expose and see how we function in this system so we can actually make some changes that could really change our internal processing, functioning, relating to other people. And so I like that view of making darkness conscious. Now, I of course realize that if someone is very, very depressed, then they probably ought not look at too much of the darkness until they get feeling better. That's the only caveat on that. But for most people, they don't want to look at the darkness, and we need to look at that, and then we can actually become more clear. And so tonight we're talking about healing your aloneness. Let me grab a drink, a little dry mouth. And also want to I want to talk about healing your aloneness. And I might mention that aloneness and loneliness, we might be using interchangeably tonight, but I'm also going to kind of describe the differences between those two. One of my favorite authors on aloneness kind of uses loneliness and aloneness interchangeably, but I'll be talking about how there might be some differences between those two words. Let's talk about questions tonight. I'm not going to teach or talk as much in terms of teaching because I want to do more questions. What I'd like you to do is, if you'd like to ask a question tonight, write in capital letters question, and then write your brief question after that. That way we can see it more easily in the channel and in the chat. That will help us to identify your question. And I promise I'll try to get to as many questions as I can tonight. And I hope we can answer some of those. I've already gotten some that were sent to me ahead of time. When I send out the email blast to everyone to join me tonight, I tell them they can write a brief question and send it to me ahead of time. When we're talking about, and when we talk about aloneness, and when we talk about loneliness. I like this notion. The problem is not that you are alone, but that you are alone with you. And that's the struggle and problem with aloneness and loneliness. And many people think, and I can understand commonly, that it's a common notion that, well, if you don't have any friends and nobody comes and sees you and you don't have a boyfriend or girlfriend, and you don't have a partner, a spouse, your family has been, you've been alienated from your family, and the um, we tend to think it's all those external circumstances and external relationships that we don't have that cause the loneliness. When actually, with all that gone, we're only left with us. And most of us don't like us very well. We don't like ourselves very well. And that's where the pain of aloneness and loneliness come from. I don't want to be stuck with me because I don't like me. So I don't want to be stuck with me. And so I feel alone because me and myself are not getting along well. And so I don't want to be alone. So actually, some people will stay in their family dramas, even dysfunctional dramas. I have a client now who's staying with a boyfriend who, I mean, they almost have no relationship whatsoever. He's quite a mess. They don't have intimacy. They don't, but at least if I have this, I'm living with this boyfriend, then I'm not alone. And then very recently she realized, but Jerry, I'm still alone. And I said, yes, that's the important point. That even if you're with someone just to not be alone, you're still going to be alone. And so that's where we end up with the boyfriend, the other people don't fix that. Now, I'm certainly not against uh, being with other people, as and I will teach all the time. We want to work on connectedness, intimacy, having healthy relationships. We want all that connection. And my friend in San Francisco, Carol, she'll know who I'm talking about. She's kind of toying and writing with the notion of the 90% life. Zero, 180 degrees from zero is still sick. If zero is sick, 180 degrees is still sick. So we want to do the 90-degree life or self-differentiated life. And the when if we're going to focus on somebody else, we're often not going to focus on ourselves or what we need because we'll overfunction. We'll try to make the relationship work, try to make the other person happy, because if they're happy, then I can be happy. But of course, those are all things that have to do with codependency. Because even if you're not alone, it doesn't mean you're not alone. Even if you have someone who can show you some positive regard after you've overfunctioned so that you can feel loved, you often don't feel loved anyway because you put in all that overfunctioning energy. You've not been yourself, and then of course you don't feel loved even when you get it. So if you have to, and as Brene Brown says, if you have to hustle for it, you're not going to get it. You can't hustle for it. And the same thing is with loneliness. If you have to hustle to not feel lonely, you're not going to get it. What we need to do is heal the aloneness or loneliness within us and connect within ourselves. That's what's most important. Um, there is a book I want to recommend to folks, and I want to start off by recommending that. And this book is by Margaret Paul and Erica Chopik. But I really like Margaret Paul's books. And Healing Your Aloneness is where I got some of my material. I also did some research on that, and she's really very good, and I really like her. Healing Your Aloneness and Finding Love and Wholeness Through Your Inner Child. Well, that sounds interesting because, a lot of books on dating, relationships, marriage, they say finding love and wholeness through, healthy relationships with other people. Finding love, marriage, and wholeness by dating better, by being in relationships with people who are nicer or more. And Margaret Paul says, no, finding love and wholeness through your inner child. And that's, of course, what I do when I work with people and coach people is to help them to increase their self differentiation, help them to increase their self love, self respect, self acceptance. That's going to draw other people who have the same level of awareness. And you're less likely to get hooked up to the crazy narcissist, the borderline personality, the toxic relationship. Because why are we attracted to toxic relationships? Why would we why would that happen? If my whole mind and I'm wishing, "Oh, I want a healthy relationship." Yes, I wanna be close to someone. I wanna be happy. I want them to be healthy and have their life, and we bring our 2 lives together. That's what I'd really like. But when I go out there and date, all I get is, you know, immaturity, toxicity, games, not healthy, not loving, and all kinds of other problems. Why would that be? If my will, I have a will to do the right thing, because as we know, it's not our will that does it. It's how connected are you to you? How connected are you to your inner child? And how grown up is your inner adult? When your inner adult is grown up, your inner child feels loved, accepted, and valued. Guess what? What kind of relationships do you think you might find then? Probably much different than what you were finding before. And so that work of self differentiation is so important, um, because in some ways, I suppose I'm uh, a matchmaker, a romantic coach, a relationship guide, but I don't need the other person to do it. I just need you, because if I can help and deal with you, that's going to change those other things. Um, Margaret Paul mentions when the adult and the child within us are connected and working together, there will be a sense of wholeness within. Um, when they are working together, um, or excuse me, when they are not working together or are disconnected because of being wounded, dysfunctional, or underdeveloped, then there's a sense of conflict, emptiness, loneliness, or aloneness. And that's where we find the root of that. So, loneliness is about your inner child. It's not about all the things around you and all the relationships around you. Now, of course, some people have, they have lost a lot of people around them. They don't have a lot of people, family, partners, they have been abandoned or rejected by other people often. And while painful and while difficult and while needing to be healed, it's still not the basis for the aloneness. That's inside us. And in fact, often because we have that basis of aloneness inside us, we then have a family who is more rejecting. We have relationships that are more abandoning and rejecting. And we just live out what's going on inside of us. And we'll talk about more about that in just a little bit. Uh, I also wanted to mention, because I was going to say we were going to use the, whoops, no, that's not it. let me find it here. I have a few notes. Um, and it had to do, I wanted to kind of talk about aloneness versus loneliness. Oh, and I had it. Well, I thought I had it right here. I printed it off on the computer. I think it's on a page by itself. Here, well, I think I can do it from by heart, but it, yeah, I can do it by heart. That's okay. Loneliness is an inner, if you're going to define the two of them, loneliness and aloneness. Loneliness is the experience in which we have pain and self rejection, painful disconnectedness from other people. And so, loneliness is, for many who describe loneliness, is the painful experience of being alone. Aloneness is often described as more of solitude. We're okay with being with ourselves, and we can have our own time with us, and we're okay. That's aloneness. Though I just want to mention there, those are the two often way you describe it. Aloneness is healthy. Loneliness is not healthy or painful. Um, and the in this video tonight, I'm going to be talking about these kind of interchangeably. But somebody has asked me, how are those two things different? They are, but a lot of times they're used interchangeably. And I see even Margaret Paul in her book says not healing your aloneness or healing your loneliness. She's saying healing your aloneness. So it's used interchangeably. So let me talk about some main points. Loneliness is about your inner child. Stop blaming it on everything that's happened, your husband who left you, your wife who left you, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your siblings, your parent. That's not where the aloneness started, and it's probably they are only repeating and reinforcing the aloneness that began long, long ago. And Margaret Paul mentions in her great book, healing aloneness and loneliness requires learning from and with the inner child and taking responsibility for all the feelings of the inner child. And that if we can learn from this inner child, we can reduce our aloneness and our loneliness because we're learning to be friends and caring and loving to us. If I've had people ask me, well, what's the inner child, Jerry? What do you mean by the inner child? Is that some weird, strange, mystical kind of thing? Well, we're talking about our inner parts, and there's lots of theories and therapies about inner parts. The inner teenager, the inner adult. There's internal family systems that's popular, and there are other transactional analysis. For those of you who remember that long ago, the child, the parent, and the adult. Is it your child talking? Is it your adult talking? Or is it your critical parent talking? And those three parts were very popular for transactional analysis way back when. The inner child functions in the right brain. It's the modes of being, feeling, and experiencing. That's where the inner child is. The inner adult is more the doing, the thinking, the task, and problem solving. So think of inner adult as the doing, think of inner child as the being experience of ourselves. Our unloved, unaccepted, disconnected inner child is carrying around all the loneliness and that aloneness that's painful. When we experience shame, control, abuse, neglect, criticism, hate, lies, betrayal, the inner child disconnects from the inner adult who is not feeling protected by him or her. So, what happens is if somebody is critical of me or shames me, oh, you're so stupid, you're such a dope, and this is a parent. Um, this is a parent who is lashing out at their child. And what happens is our inner adult has not learned nor is being modeled or shown what they can do to help soothe and support the inner child. Well, that we take that on into adulthood, and then we have the same experience. You know, a partner or a spouse criticizes us, demeans us, wants us to feel stupid and demeaned in some way. The inner child is attacked in that way, and our inner adult doesn't kick in. It doesn't kick in to protect that inner child. And so the inner child goes, not only does my husband not care about me, I'm not even caring about me, says the inner child. And so that ends up now we have a great deal of aloneness because the inner child's just sitting there with no one on their side, neither me nor the spouse or anyone else who's being mean in that way. And when we feel that loneliness because of the negative experiences we've had in the past growing up, also as we've had as adults, we disconnect from the inner adult who's not taking care of us, not soothing us, not caring about us, not taking care of us, not protecting us. Then guess what we do? We find distractions. Um, the And so we move to those distractions such as approval seeking. We move to sex, love, too much substances, work, school, achievement, working out. I mean, it can be anything that we can move to try to fill that loneliness that we have on the inside because the inner adult's not kicking in and taking care of us in a healthy way. As we try to escape, uh, uh, we have this unbearable aloneness, never realizing connection with others cannot occur without internal connection to oneself. So I have a lot of people out there going, well, you know, I tried to go to this church, I tried to join this recovery group meeting, I tried to go out to the bar and meet some new people, I tried to join this club to see. And so I tried to make connections, but I just never could because never realizing connection with others cannot occur without internal connection to oneself. And if you don't have that, then you can go be with 1,000 people and you're still going to feel alone. You may have a hard time connecting because we need to have that internal connection of inner adult and inner child. Um, the loved inner child can make connections with others. We can move to an I love me and you love me state. An I love me and a you love me state. And that's possible if we have that connection. I don't know if those of you remember Alice Miller and her books. Alice Miller was a great author and a good teacher and therapist. And in her book, For Your Own Good, oh, I see Jillian said, I need an I Love Me jacket. Oh, absolutely. You should sell them. We'll sell them on my website. I love me jackets. Jillian, we can make that work. And again, if any of you have any questions, you can write question and then write a brief question. I'll try to help answer that, though I do have a few already to answer. Um, for your own good states, the way we were treated as small children is the way we treat ourselves the rest of our life. The way we were treated as small children is the way we treat ourselves the rest of our life. Now, that's the bad news because it's true. That's the pattern, the emotional field we're connected to, and that's how we experience life out of that. Well, what's the good news? We can reparent ourselves and love and accept our inner child and grow up our inner adult. And that's through reparenting. Because people say, "Oh, I had horrible parents. They were awful. They were abusive. They were mean. They were ugly. They were narcissists." I'm going, "That's horrible. I mean, that's terrible that that happened." But it doesn't prevent you from you becoming the new parent. You can take over their role for you. And that's why I put the quote up on my Facebook, which is my quote, where it's never too late to have a happy childhood. You can have a happy childhood now, even if you didn't have one then. And that's the good news. Becoming aware of the unloving way in which we are parenting ourselves and what it means to be a loving adult to our inner child is the most important thing. And again, I think I would recommend her book. There's another book I would recommend. I think I brought that out. And I like this one as well. I really think it's a good book. It is called Inner Bonding: Becoming a Loving Adult to Your Inner Child, Dr. Margaret Paul. Inner Bonding: Healing Your Aloneness. If you want to know how to begin to heal that inner child, and she will help you. And there's also some techniques. I could share some of those techniques with you, but then we'd get all into the weeds at that point. And I want to keep on a general view tonight. But if you want the specifics, I would recommend Margaret Paul's books. Now, I have some questions I'd like to go to. I said I was going to spend about 30 minutes talking, and then I'd like to answer questions for the hour that we have remaining. We have a 90-minute segment tonight. And this question is, do most people feel aloneness, and can you describe what that is? It is connected to a lack Is it connected to a lack of love and acceptance as a child? Is it normal to want to be loved and want others to be happy with you? Um, I don't think that's abnormal at all to want to be loved or to want others to be happy with you. It's just you can't make it a need out of our dependency needs. That's where it's going to be a problem. In other words, I'm not okay if you don't love me. I'm not okay if you're unhappy with me. That's where it becomes a problem. What I found is, and how would I describe? I remember a long, long time ago, and working on relationships. And when I was a pastor, I used to teach seminars to singles about friendships and about relationships as singles and what are the dynamics behind that. And of course, they were always asking, well, how do I how do I find a partner? I can't find a partner. I can't find somebody to be with. Well, that's because you haven't found yourself. You don't look for a partner first and then try to find yourself. Uh, you look for yourself and then find a partner. That's going to work out a whole lot better. And that if you're looking for love if you're looking for others to be happy with you, to make you happy, that's gonna be a hustling and a chase and a work you're gonna do the rest of your life. You'll never be done. And actually, sadly, you'll never get what you want. But again, I want to answer this person's question that certainly it's normal to want to be loved. Oh, I know. And years ago, I didn't know how to love someone else, and so I thought, well, love means I just overfunction. Love means that I just do for other people, and I hustle with them. And because that's the only thing I knew to do, so I'll do that. It works sometimes, didn't other times, but it doesn't work in terms of it sticks. It doesn't stick. You just have to keep doing it because it's a bucket with holes in it, and you keep pouring water in it, acceptance, love, other things, and it just flows right out through the bottom of the bucket. And so I thought, well, how do you get the bucket to not have holes in the bottom of it? And began the trek and the learning of discovering something more about me. And that what I found was the more I loved myself, the more others could demonstrate and show their love, and the more I could demonstrate and show my love to them. And in my background, loving yourself was seen as selfish, unchristian. Um, you shouldn't be so narcissistic about yourself. So we often are taught. And in fact, parents raise children to not think too highly of themselves. "Yeah, I think you've got you're too big for your britches now. Don't get too haughty. Don't do this." Because again, if someone accepts themselves, and that's often why parents will kind of reject young children sometimes, because they are just free enough to love themselves. They're just free enough to be okay with themselves. And parents will feel very uncomfortable about that. And so they will, really put the kibosh on that and to stop that because they don't want somebody who's just floating around accepting and loving themselves like little children will do. And they feel uncomfortable. And so they try to teach them to be more adult. And well, just remember, you're not the prettiest person in the world. And just remember, you're not that smart. And don't get too big for your britches. You know, and just always kind of the put down so that nobody really rises above. And so everybody stays at this level that nobody can poke their head up with happiness, joy, celebration, self-love. No, you gotta be a part of the family's super self, which says don't get too prideful and don't think about yourself too much. And if you do, you'll get in trouble, you'll get smacked, you'll get criticized. Well, we take that right on into adulthood. And then we go, I so want to be loved. Um, I see a question on there. Oh, from Soren. Okay. I so want to be loved, and I so want others to be happy with me. Well, as we are more happy with ourselves, as we love ourselves more, we then find people who really do love you for who you are and really are happy with you. Um, Loneliness is felt when we experience our young selves experiencing worthlessness, rejection, shame, self hate, disregard, unacceptance from self, when our inner child is being ignored, rejected, or criticized by ourselves, by our inner adult. And then we're going to feel really lonely. And then we'll go out and try to fill that hole up with other relationships. And I tell people, well, good luck. I hope that works. I know you can go out and party. I mean, I know you can do that. And it does distract. I mean, it's fun. But it may not be as love fulfilling in doing that. I have another question. This is from Debbie. Oh, I think that's where she was talking about what kind of threat? Oh, we were talking about, oh, yes, she was talking about the AARP. Hi, I'm looking forward to your presentation of your healing your aloneness tonight. And AARP issue discussing recent research on the risk of social isolation. Research suggests that loneliness is perceived by the human body as a kind of threat, which results in physiological changes in our body. In recovery, many of us work towards a healthy balance of maintaining our connectedness to others and learning to enjoy and value our own company. Um, as always, did you see the Liz question? There was the last. As always, thank you for the work you do. You're definitely my armchair therapist. Great. Um, Loneliness is painful. Social isolation is very painful, and I think can be destructive. So I'm not for social isolation, but I also want to mention that detachment and separateness is not the same as social isolation. And a lot of people will equate those. And so they'll stay in enmeshment or codependency so they won't be socially isolated. But actually, detachment and separateness don't harm or create social isolation. And so learning to love and accept ourselves, that's what's going to really make a difference. Um, the chasm between being alone and loneliness is deep. The way you begin to be alone and at peace without being lonely is to know that you are with your best friend. And again, that's one of the points I've been making tonight. If we can be, we're not going to be lonely if we can be alone with us. Now, again, you may have less social interaction or connectedness than you would like to have. We can do things to increase that social connectedness. But the first place to learn that is right inside us with our parts of ourselves. And so that's something you can do with you. And again, Margaret Paul's book would be helpful. And Soren had a question. So by learning to love ourselves, are we doing nice things for ourselves? Is that what self-love is? That's an excellent question, Soren. Right. What does it mean to love ourselves? What does it mean? Well, I think it means learning to become aware of your inner adult and your inner child. Margaret Paul talks about some ways in which you can do that. Because here's another problem that we have, and maybe some of you have experienced this. I know I did because I didn't know and I remember early on in my therapy process and working on my own issues, he would say, "Well, what's little Jerry in there saying?" I'm saying, "I have no idea what little Jerry is in there saying. Who knows? Where's he at? What are you talking about? I'm an adult." Well, you have an inner child and you know what, what how does he feel about what's going on? Or what is he feeling right now? Well, I have no idea. Come to realize I had blocked him out for so many years and had been critical, unprotecting, unloving, uncaring about him. He wasn't ready to talk yet. He wasn't ready for me to be aware of him and to notice him because even within me, it wasn't a safe environment. I wasn't safe for me. And so you can begin to reverse that work by starting to make yourself more safe to your inner child. Um, the and making it safe can be telling your inner child, "Hey, I don't hear anything from you right now. That's okay. You don't have to talk. You and I haven't talked for a long time, and I've probably been pretty rough on you and haven't protected you or cared about you. So why don't I be patient and listen and spend some time listening, whether you talk or not, inner child. I'm going to take some time to listen. And when you're ready to um, talk, then I will hear what you have to say. And I'm not going to reject you. I'm going to be a comforter, a soother, and a good caring reparenting person for you. You can begin to trust me because we haven't really trusted ourselves. And so many people have trouble with trusting other people. Guess who they trust the least? Themselves. And so, if we can learn to trust ourselves more, we then have a greater ability to trust other people. Um, I'm not sure I understand that question. Uh, that's okay. And Liz, maybe you can ask that again. So you are burnout from being alone or all the past dating? Can you rewrite that question for me? I'm not sure I know. Are we burnout from being, or you yourself, or somebody else, or what? Maybe you can describe that for me a little better, Liz, and I can take a crack at it. Also, had a great question from Dimitri. I think that's how, or I hope that's how you pronounce your name. Uh, is there any way to rewire the habitual body mind response to aloneness, which is usually to fuse with someone, getting enmeshed with someone to alleviate the hidden anxiety? And and I think it absolutely is what we do. We have that mind body response, the reactivity inside. We feel that aloneness or loneliness. And so now I'm going to go fuse with other people. I'm going to enmesh, hoping that will alleviate the aloneness and loneliness. But how many people do you know are in marriages in which they feel very, very, very alone? Many, I'm sure. Um, that just because you're married doesn't mean you're not alone, um, or feel alone. And so the key thing is that we um, work on alleviating the reactivity so that we don't try to act out the hidden anxiety. And I have a video you might want to watch, Calmness is Everything. And it talks about that hidden anxiety that we've gotten from our family of origin, and we've carried it into with us into adulthood. And then you're right, we have this inner mind body reactivity in which we then go to fuse and to alleviate that. So, Dimitri, yes, I believe that's happening. Also, to rewire that habitual EMDR is can be very um, useful in dealing with that mind body response. There are a couple other books you might want to take a look at. The Body Keeps the Score: Brain, Mind, and Body in the Healing of Trauma by Bessel van der Kolk is a good book about the body mind response. Then I also like um, the Complex PTSD workbook, A Mind Body Approach to Regaining Emotional Control and Becoming Whole by Ariel Schwartz. So those might be helpful in Dimitri to take a look at. Ah, yes. And Tricia, I do have your question here. Let me see if I can find it. That's a great question. Oh, I thought I had it. I thought I had Trisha's. How do I? Oh, no, here it is. Well, this is. Wait a minute. Well, it's kind of a similar question. So I'll answer both Patty's and Trisha's question. Um, Uh, Patty from Florida, which would be nice to be in Florida, hoping to be in Miami maybe soon. The She writes, "How do I get other people to unmesh with me so I can be more uh, can be alone more without being too distant or too rude? They seem to think it's the thing to do." Well, first of all, it is very hard to get people to do anything or to change anything. That's for them to change or to work on. You can't get people to unmesh from you or detach from you, Patty. I wish you could, because then I wouldn't have to do the work if I could just get them to unenmesh from me. Well, I wouldn't have to do anything, so to speak. I mean, that's not really totally literally true. We can only work towards achieving detachment and differentiation ourselves. You can only work to change your side of the relationship. I see here, Patty, there's some fear about being too distant or too rude. But again, that's their perspective, that they believe you're being too distant or too rude to you. That's what they think. Well, good luck trying to change how other people think. Just and so I'm not going to hold I don't want to abandon my inner child and what he needs so that I make sure you don't feel I'm being too distant or too rude. I'm not going to do that. When I'm making my decisions to detach or to be myself internally, emotionally, I'm not doing it to be rude or doing it to be too distant. I'm doing it to care for self. Now, if you want to interpret it that way, and many families will interpret it just that way, so will husbands, spouses, girlfriends, boyfriends, friends, even, they will interpret it that way. But that's where we learn to stick with our self differentiation strategies, and we continue to detach in a healthy way. We will get some resistance, because the resistance will come as, well, why are you just withdrawing so much? Why are you just being so cold? Why are you just moving away from me? We used to talk about everything all the time. And in fact, I'd say, oh, well, hi, Stephen, how much are you making in your new job that you just got? Well, what if he doesn't want to answer because he doesn't think we necessarily need to talk about that? Or your parent asks you, "How much is your new job gonna?" Well, I don't know. That's my job. It's my, and so if you choose to differentiate or have a boundary, um, that um, then you're going to be accused of being too distant or too rude. Oh, well, you're just being so rude. We always talk about these things, but I want to change. I'd like to do something different. I don't want to talk about my salary with you. Of course, many times it's not may not be safe anyway, because if they're that enmeshed and that fused, they're probably enmeshed and fused with other people, and they're going to tell them everything you just told them. So I don't want to do that. So the resistance comes in. You're being too rude. You're being too distant. You're not doing it the way our family does this. Why are you being so mean? Why are you being so cold or heartless? Or, well, I'm not being any of those things. Well, you just don't love us, and that's why you're separating yourself from us. I don't know what you're talking about, and I don't know that I ever felt that way. So, sorry, I'm going to continue to be myself and take care of myself. If we have that fear of those things happening, then we can work on those fears if we're worried about these things, by facing our fears. And one of the best ways to face your fears is to use the magic wand approach. And the magic wand approach would be to wave a magic wand and decide, I'm going to be have the relationship that I want to have with them, as frequent as I want to have them with them, in a way I'd like to have it with them, regardless of how they feel on the other side. This is the way I would like to do the relationship. Your mom and daughter, mom wants to come and she wants to have lunch with you every Friday. Well, you may not want to have lunch every Friday. And so now if you say, well, mom, I just don't know if I want to, what? Why aren't we having lunch on Friday? We always have had lunch on Friday. For the last 10 years, we've had lunch on Friday. Well, I'd like to kind of change that up. Oh my gosh, what's wrong with you? What are you doing? Have you gone and seen some therapist or some coach like Jerry Wise or something, and he's giving you bad advice? Um, and that they will be accused of that. And so what we do is we wave a magic wand and we pretend as though now I have no fears about doing whatever I want to do. I have no fears. I can't feel them. I can't do anything but what I would like to do, regardless of what other people would think or feel, or criticize me, or resist. And then we ask, now what would be the downsides? If I had no fear, what would be the downsides? What would happen that would be bad? Mom would get upset about not wanting to have the Friday dinner every time or go to Christmas when she wants us to have Christmas. They would be upset. They would be critical of me. Um, what are they going to do to me? Uh, are there some real consequences that would occur that I fear? Would I also fear, but if I stand up to mom and if I do that or stand up to dad, then he's not going to love me anymore, not going to accept me, and I'm still holding out the dream that I will have the mother or father I always wanted. Um, and so I have to give up that dream to be able to be self-differentiated. Well, who wants to give up that dream that we're one day going to have the parents we always wanted? That's a hard dream to give up, or the family we always wanted, or that's a hard dream to give up. And so we don't give it up, and then we have all these fears that occur. If we're willing to give up that dream, we can then operate in a more adult, self differentiated way and feel calmer and, and better in the relationship. And we've had some other questions. Oh, yes. And Joan writes, do you think it's like we have to learn how to integrate the child self and the adult self? Absolutely. They have to learn to love, care, and connect with each other. And when we don't do that, then it's going to be a real problem. So if we've grown up in a child, as an adult child of a narcissist, grown up in a narcissistic family, then our inner child and our inner adult gets ripped apart. The inner adult doesn't know what to do, even though I know as a child you don't have an adult. But that executive function, the left brain function of us, gets disconnected from the right brain function of us. And so we end up with this disconnection with ourselves. Then we become adults. We still have this disconnection, though we're not children anymore. And so we have to relearn that. And that's where the reparenting happens. And again, inner bonding, which is exactly, Joan, what I'm talking about, that inner bonding is how you begin to heal that. Let's see. Oh, this is a hard question. Now they're going to give me a hard question. How do we how do we heal from self-abandonment when you suffer from severe loneliness? Well, self-abandonment and loneliness are sister feelings. They're very closely aligned. And that, how we heal from those, and if we have both of those operating at the same time, then one of the things you're going to hear me say, we probably need to get a guide, we need to get a help, we need to get someone we can connect to that can be an anchor for us. And so that anchor, whether it be a therapist, a 12-step sponsor, a good friend, who can be that anchor for us, can help us as we begin to deal with self-abandonment. What I also find is self-abandonment creates so much loneliness. So working on that self-abandonment and turning that around and going, wait a minute, I want to work on my self-abandonment first. And I want to focus on, in what ways am I abandoning myself? How do I keep giving up on myself? And you can begin to journal about that and begin to write about that. And in what ways maybe do I not abandon myself? Because most people who have self abandonment doesn't mean they self abandon all the time. There are times they do things for themselves. Maybe they feel lonely, isolated, very critical, very negative, but yet they like to do quilts and they love doing quilting. So they set up their quilt in their extra bedroom and they work on quilts. That's not self abandonment. That's going and working on something you enjoy and you love. So there's one foundational brick. Let's try to find some other foundational bricks that we can use to heal the self abandonment, which will help with the loneliness. And then Soren asks, what's the distinction between being alone and isolation? I didn't catch the difference, but I'm sure there is one. Well, now you're asking tough, tricky questions, Soren, for maybe somebody has a better pay grade than mine or smarter than me. The certain being alone is an inner state, not an interstate highway, but inner state. Being isolated is an external state. And there's just for example, families, narcissistic families will purposely isolate from the scapegoat and they will isolate from them often, and they can be positively connected in a critical, mean, rejecting way, and they will also isolate from them. Smear campaigns are an attempt to create isolation for the victim of the smear campaign, the target of the smear campaign. So that's what the purpose of smear campaigns is, to create isolation. I can do something about my own life's isolation. I can do something about my own loneliness or aloneness. I can do something about those. But I don't know if that helps. Isolation's external, aloneness or loneliness is internal. Um, thanks, Soren. Okay. Annie asks, if I get the PTSD workbook, would I need to analyze my answers results with a counselor? I certainly think it would. You don't have to. This is a self book that you can do on your own, and you can look at your own answers for insight, etc. And but it also can be very helpful to use a guide, a coach, a counselor, a sponsor, someone that you could read your answers to and get some feedback. And that would be really helpful, I think, um, in that process, Annie. Now here's another, I think, good question. This is from Jessica. Jerry, I have limited contact with my mother, who is a narcissist. I have no contact with both my narcissist sisters. In turn, I have no contact with my nieces and nephews. I do feel lonely, but I know there's no other way to handle my family situation. I didn't like myself when I was being abused by my family, and I still don't like myself for having to go no contact. Any advice would be appreciated. If you notice, what was common for both of those was I didn't like myself. I didn't like myself when I was being abused. I don't like myself for going no contact. Working on liking yourself would be very important. Also, if we go no contact, uh, I don't, how do I want to say this? In some ways, it's like this. If I go no contact with family members or other people, going no contact in my way of thinking in a self differentiation way is I'm not choosing to go no contact. You are requiring me to. And there's a difference. I would rather not choose no contact. I mean, that's, or going uh, uh, gray rock, or, it's not something I choose. It's something you're forcing me to do because of your toxicity. And I have to take care of my inner child. I have to take care of my inner adult. And so um, I have no other choice but to go no contact. Uh, there just isn't any other choice. And so, I don't have to blame myself for that, because it's not a choice that I'm making because I'm just bad or I don't like myself. I don't have any other choice. Now, it does create some collateral damage, such as, but that's not me creating it. It's because, like, if I don't have contact with an uncle and an aunt because of their narcissistic abuse, I may not be able to connect much with their children. And that's part of the collateral damage because they're not my children, they're their children. And so I don't get to connect with them apart from them unless they allow that. Many times they won't, they'll use the kids as weapons. Um, so um, I think if you come to the end of your rope and you go, there's just no other way to deal with my family situation. And I've had people that have gone to family situations and asked their families to change, set up boundaries, did everything they could to try to get some compliance from their family. And the family was immovable and was not going to change. Well, then, if they're not going to change, I can change. I have the power to change. Thanks, Jessica. And yes, the Manny writes, I am sending you a question for the live telecast. Is it realistically possible for someone to be single for decades, for a decade or decades, and live alone, but not feel alone? This is when they do feel lonely. Now, there's a lot of words in there but I would say that I think you can be single for decades and live alone, and I believe it's possible to not feel alone. And again, if we use alone as a healthy thing, lonely as an unhealthy thing, so I can put and not feel lonely. Yes, I believe that is. There are people who do it all the time, and in fact, I remember the great examples of dealing with that kind of life and doing. When I was a pastor, I did studies on the religious life, monks, nuns, brothers, monasteries, convents, and just spiritual life for someone who is single. And how do you deal with being alone and not being married and not having, and there was a lot of good wisdom in those writings, and that they were able to find joy, love. There was just nothing they weren't able to find in their lives except marriage, and a sexual component and that sort of thing. And even all nuns, monks, and people who are in monasteries have to deal with sexuality um, because they're human beings. But it is possible for us to be happy and to not be lonely, and we do that by filling our life with us, with you, with others, with friends, with interests, with self care. We have to work on reducing self rejection, self abandonment. And then, of course, I think a lot happens if we feel lonely. there's a lot of fears and anxieties, which really makes the loneliness so much harder. There are a lot of fears and anxieties. You can make your own home a place for people. You can bring people in, or go out with people and enjoy. Learn to become more open with people. I know of friends who are more open with each other than with their own spouses. So don't tell me marriage just makes it all everything's close and open and authentic. No, no, it's we can choose to people we can be authentic with and open with. And it doesn't mean it's our spouse. In fact, many marriages I think happen that way. And so working on fears and anxieties are important. And also making memories with friends and beginning to build some friendships through support groups, 12-step groups uh, can be of help. And it's even okay to focus on your vocation. Now, that's a little different than your job or career. Why are you here? You know, why are you here? What are you here to do? Who are you here to be? Whether you have a Christian perspective, a spiritual perspective, an Eastern perspective, Muslim perspective, whatever your perspective, why are you here? What are you here to do? And I've always believed in that type of spirituality that it is larger than me and it transcends beyond me. And what am I here for? I don't think I'm here to transform the whole world. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think I can even do that. Uh, but I feel like I might be here to maybe transform a little bit of it, and that may be the best that I can do, and that's fine. What am I here for? Who am I here for? And asking those questions about our vocation in life. Why do we feel we're here? And what purpose do you have? How can you serve a purpose that's within you? Uh, Thanks, Manny. Ooh, how much alone time is too much? When does it become selfishness and antisocial? I feel the more I'm alone, the more I like it more than being with people, Trish says. Is this unhealthy? Well, but that's sometimes a hard question. Um, I believe your preferences are very important. Some people have a greater capacity or are gregarious and want to be with others more. Some people might be more introverted, though that's not, I don't mean an unhealthy introversion, but they're just not as socially energized by that. The introvert, when they interact with other people or society or social events, that that can be draining for them. But they do it because they want to have interactions with other people. And then those who are extroverts, when they interact with other people and in social situations, they are energized by it. So different people have energy and lose energy depending upon social connectedness. So every person is individual. So I'm not sure I know, and maybe I haven't thought about this question well enough, when it would be too much. I think it becomes too much if you stop being yourself. Um, and when does it become selfishness? Well, I don't, the or antisocial. And that might be a good question to ask a therapist I mean, about you particularly, a therapist or a coach. I have some ideas about that, but I don't know. I'd probably want to think about that a little longer so I don't give bad advice. Um, and I can understand some people do feel more, the more they're kind of alone, the more they like that more than being with people. Some people have pets. Some people enjoy that company and the unconditional love that they get from their animals and their pets, or doing quilting, they just really, really enjoy that and it energizes them. Um, but we are kind of human beings, and I think in general kind of made for a social connection in some ways. What is the healthy balance for everyone? I don't know. I'm not sure I can give that answer, Tricia. I hope that helped a little bit with your question, Trish. Yes. Oh, and somebody asked about the book names. We have Complex PTSD Workbook is one book I shared. Another is The Body Keeps the Score by Besser van der Kolk. The Body Keeps the Score. And then the Margaret Paul books of Inner Bonding by Margaret Paul. And then we have Healing Your Aloneness by Margaret Paul and her other co-author. So those are four of the books I know I've mentioned tonight. Somebody asked me if I would review those. Gwen asked, what if you what if you disdain for the feelings of your inner child because you were told your feelings were bad by your parents? After all, they were immature feelings. The we do have, all of us have grown up with um, probably some negative perspective of our inner child. We all have some brokenness because no parents are perfect. There are no perfect parents out there. And as a parent myself, I was not a perfect parent. It just doesn't happen. I wish I would have been. I wish my parents would have been perfect parents. They were not. And in fact, I'm a product of probably four or five generations of some difficult parenting. Um, and so I grew up learning, or having some disdain for my inner child. Then I end up learning from them not to like me. That's what we end up learning. And if we're told that our feelings were bad, why are you feeling that? That's stupid. Um, if and if someone said, "Well, mom or dad, I just feel hurt." And they go, "Well, you just need to grow up and accept that life is yada, 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 and stop that silly feelings stuff." In fact, I saw a mother with a child, even it was at the airport, as a matter of fact, and she was really giving her son a really hard time, who was crying, he was upset, and she was just not going to be empathetic. And I understand how parents can be overwhelmed, and I'm not blaming her for being an imperfect parent. Um, the Because she could have been having a bad day. Maybe he's just been really troubled all day. I know you can get tired, you can get irritable. So I'm not really blaming her. But I also know with the kid, he didn't know what to do with his feelings. And in fact, she ends up kind of smacking him several times to make him stop crying. Well, what's going to happen if you get smacked several times to stop crying? You, you're going to cry some more, or you're going to get smacked enough that you're going to hold it all in. And that's going to be a real problematic difficulty when you have to do that. So basically, you're being told, WAP, those feelings you're having right now are wrong and are bad. You need to stop those. Slap. And so we have those experiences. And the we grow up with that. And the good news is we can reparent that and reparent ourselves and how we accept our own feelings. How are we doing for time? We've got about 10 minutes here. Oh gosh. Well, that's an interesting question. I don't know. And someone's asking about my own past experience. And I would say this, hi Jerry, you've been a huge inspiration to me over the years. I'd love to hear more about your personal experience with shifting aloneness. When did you really feel that aha breakthrough and what changed? Big love, Carolyn. Thanks, Carolyn. Uh, and I'm kind of a little bit of an an introvert, and so I don't talk a lot about my own story and my own past and all that. I do that with clients. I want you to tell I do that with other friends. I do that, with people who are close to me, so I don't withhold that information. I just generally don't do a lot of that on a public forum, though some people do, and I think that's great. I think that can be a real message. It doesn't seem to be quite the message I want to put out. But I do remember the experiences of beginning to learn that, oh my gosh, um, I really I don't like being with me, and I had never thought about that before. Gosh, I can't remember what year that was. I'm not even going to say the year because I don't want to get back into previous centuries here. Um, the but I remember the time starting to learn about loving myself, and just began to realize how much I didn't. And what was cool and what was neat was it had to do with that quote that I said in the beginning, about we're not trying to, yeah, I think it was in there. Yeah. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious, by Carl Jung. And so I was making my darkness conscious, how I don't like me. Oh my gosh. But then I began to feel a sense of control and a little more stability in that, well, if I don't like me, um, that um, maybe I have some power or empowerment to be able to like me or learn to like me. And I didn't think I'd never thought about that even before. I just felt the pain of not feeling connected to me and just feeling lonely and alone, and thought, oh, well, this will just never change. And I guess the only way to not feel alone is just go be around a lot of people as much as you can. But I found that that didn't fix the aloneness, and in fact, as a bishop, as a pastor, I had a lot of people around me all the time. I had people who wanted to be friends with me, I had people I wanted to be friends with, but it didn't fix the aloneness, it didn't fix the loneliness. Have you've heard the line that, "I can be lonely even in a crowd," and a lot of people can. They can go to a party and feel very, very lonely. Uh, and so that's, I think, a very common experience. Well, I hope that and me sharing a little bit of that with you, Carolyn. Um, Now I have kind of an interesting, fun question, maybe someone's asking here. The Heard you are going to Miami. Yeah, I think I need to actually. I've got a new thing that I'm going to be doing. I hope to do a 12-week master class in self differentiation and in healing. And I would like to, and I need to go down there. I'm going to work on the different modules and components of that course so that people can be helped by that. So I'm going to be working on that probably even this month or the next. And I heard you're going to Miami. I was going to go to Miami. I also have some clients down there that I can see. And of course, it's never too horrible to be in Miami during the winter here in Indiana. That's always a nice thing. You said I have 3 semesters and I'll be a registered nurse. I'm searching for a place to move. Is Miami a nice place? Is there a lot to do? I've never been. Miami is a wonderful place. There is a lot to do. I mean, I've talked to people who live down there. I mean, there are downsides to living in Miami too, believe it or not. There are downsides to living anywhere. Um, but certainly there would be a lot of social interactions possible, job opportunities, and those kinds of things. Um, but it is a very nice place, and there would be a lot to do. And I think there you can find good people down there. I found good people down there. There's some not so good people down there too. But that's true where I live right now. That's true in every city, in every place. You want to find your tribe. You want to find your community that's like you, that share, values, beliefs, purposes, and things like that. And you can find those in Miami or LA or Kansas City or Denton, Texas, or whatever city you go to. And I think, yeah, Trish mentions, yeah, Miami can have a lot of crime in it, and it can, but big cities have crime. That's true for any large city. Um, there's some beautiful places to live in. What is the North Carolina? The two twin cities. Ah, shoot, I can Salem, Winston, Salem. I can't even think what it is. There's some nice, livable places in North Carolina and South Carolina. So there's places to go everywhere, and I hope you go down there and visit. Go and visit and see go to some middle class places. I don't know, maybe you're wealthy, maybe you're poor, I don't know. But go visit some places that would be more in line with your own social, economic, and how you would be living, and see if you could find some neighborhoods that are like that. And that could be a way you could check out Miami. I'm looking forward to going down there and staying and maybe looking over the ocean a little bit and writing out some videos that. Oh, and Coral Gables, yes, that's a lovely, lovely place. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, LeBron James lived there. I think I saw his house down the street when I went to Coral Gables. Um, so we did that one. Let's see if there's. Um, well, I might mention just a little bit of this one. Having become aware, this is Stephanie, of my tendency to attract toxic people and the devastating effect and havoc they have, I have decided and accepted that it is safer to be alone and that it is okay. And I would rather have my own company than have these people in my life anymore. I don't blame you, Stephanie. If the choice is me being alone, or having be abused in unhealthy relationships, I think I'd take alone, because I could work with those dynamics more. I would rather my own company than have these people in my life anymore. It's just too much, exhausting. One must have discernment who to let in. Absolutely. Who to like, etc. And this is a revelation that has made me strong. Also, an artist friend once said, and the biblical words have stuck, don't throw your pearls before swine. And we often do that when we're codependent and narcissistically abused. We'll give away our best selves to the swine. We will give away our best selves to the narcissist, to the borderline, to the unhealthy, to the manipulative, and we find ourselves doing that. But that's because we learned that way, way long time ago, and then we do it as adults. Hope you can comment on feeling more safe and alone. And this look forward to joining you. Thank you, Stephanie. Uh, I think, yeah, feeling more safe alone. For some people, that I really do. If someone's come through a broken relationship, I usually don't tell people. Um, I usually don't tell people about that you should quickly go find another relationship. That way you won't feel alone. Or many people will do the overlapping trapeze artist way of doing relationships. Well, if I'm going to break up from this relationship, let me get in another one so there's no break in there so I don't have to feel alone. But the problem is then you end up with serial bad relationships. And so it can be helpful to go, wait a minute, why don't you choose some aloneness and learn how to deal with you? Then let's see about having other people enter in and you finding a better, healthier relationship. Uh, I think the state you're talking about, in my opinion, Stephanie, now you have a right to do whatever you want with your life. And you can be, alone if you're okay with your aloneness and you don't want to have those connections. That's your right to choose that. Um, I think of those kind of states as transitional states that we use that state of aloneness where we kind of just shut out some folks. And I remember in going through some changes in my own life that I needed to change who are my friends and who are not. Because I got a bunch of people that are just, this is crazy. They just use me and it's just, ridiculous. And then I got people I think that care about me and just really doing an inventory on my own friendships and relationships. And some people had to go. That this is just not, I mean, they can do whatever they want to do. I'm not judging them, but they were just not for me. And we have to make those choices. So we go through that period of, okay, now we're okay, we're going to be alone. I don't want those toxic relationships. So now I can use this time as a transition state when we can slowly heal, recover, strengthen ourselves, and increasing our awareness of unhealthy signs in other people and relationships, and to also work on raising our self differentiation during this transitional time. Well, we've come to the end of our time. I do have one last question, and it's about the master class that I mentioned. Is your master class talk about inner child work? And that's Clutter Possum. Excited to hear about it. It will have, well, what I think is important in the dynamic of growing up, understanding the system and how you operate in the system of relationships, doing inner child work and inner bonding work, growing up your adult and that inner adult. And what does it mean to grow up? That would be like me. I tend to be, you know, uh, my age going on, 15 sometimes. And what I want to do is I want to act and make choices at my age. What would be appropriate for this age person to do? How do I see them acting and behaving? That's what I would like to do. And so that's growing up your inner adult and talk about the Jenny Brown book, um, Growing Yourself Up would be a part of the master class. Andrea Shera and her book, Mindful Compass, and Roberta Gilbert, Harriet Lerner. They're all family systems authors, and they write very good books. Well, we've come to the end of our time, and it's been, I hope it has been a help uh, to some of you, and you've gained some information tonight. I certainly appreciate you joining me tonight. I really hope you will find me at www.jerrywiserelationshipsystems.com. You can find me on Facebook with the same name, Twitter, and I'd like you to subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is Family Tree Counseling. Oh, Jerry Wise Relationship Systems. This channel that I'm on tonight as a guest with Mark, from Mark and Renda, is Family Tree Brand Life Coaches. I hope you'll join their channel as well. And if you'd like information or like to know more about working with me, send me an email. I'll have my information up for you to contact me and reach out to me. You can also reach out to me through the website. Again, I appreciate your patience with listening to me for a long time, and you've been kind to do that. I hope tonight, us meeting together, was a help to you. I appreciate it, and I hope you have a great night.